Welcome everyone to the Just Arrival podcast. I'm DJ Abcool, the Colts fan. On the other side is my man Aaron, the Houston Texans fan. How's it going over there in Houston, man?
Man, it's going all right. Just like I've said previously, it's just still hot and humid over here. I know as Texans are practicing all that, I know they're happy to go over to Detroit where they're doing their current joint practices. So I know they love the weather over there more than over here because this weather's terrible over here. But how's it all going over there in the Colts side?
Colts side, just the weather, man. Summer, summer weather. It's a lot of summer weather. Wish I could be in Indy right now, but I bet the weather there is also probably kind of hot,
Yeah.
But hope all is good, man. I think everything is gonna go well. I think for both sides. But now we're gonna go into the Colts and the Texans. So we obviously have to review the games that happened earlier this week. Would you like to start, Aaron, with the Texans Week 2 preseason game?
Yeah, we had the Colts and Panthers preseason game this past Saturday. I got, I of course caught a glimpse of it. Was watching it from mainly the first and second quarter because those were the most interesting, quarters. Because once you get to third and fourth, you got your third and fourth stringers pretty much. But with the Panthers game, honestly, I loved the way the Texans looked from their starters to their second stringers. They all played their heart out. And like I know I said last week, the last week before the game, I wanted to see how CJ, Nick Caley, how Nick Chubb, how the whole offense played out. I'm not gonna lie, I loved how they looked. I loved how Nick Chubb looked. Like when you go back to watch his plays that he made, he was just patient in the pocket when he had the ball and just found the hole, ran. And Nick Chubb, people were kind of bashing him, saying he's not going to come back as good as he was from his injury. But man, I'm not gonna lie, we might just see like a glimpse at his Cleveland Brown era, Nick Chubb self, and putting that with Joe Mixon. Once Joe Mixon comes back healthy, hey, that's gonna be a 1-2 punch that nobody will be ready for. And thankfully, with our offensive line, they've been showing up and showing out each preseason week, as well as today during joint practice with a tough defense themselves as the Detroit Lions. They've reported that Texas offensive line is looking pretty good. They've had their struggles still, but it's good defenses that are going up against. But from the Panthers game to joint practice today, they've held their own. They've made enough time for CJ to make a play, and that's what we've wanted since the end of last season, pretty much. And going on the defensive side of the ball, everybody looked good. Will Anderson looked good. Daniil Hunter, they gave Bryce Young hell in the beginning of Bryce's drives. And it was to where, a lot of Panthers fans were honestly criticizing Bryce Young because of his pocket awareness, because of his decision-making. And this is just preseason, so that's why it's like with our defense, with how well they did, honestly, it's just great to see, stuff like that to happen. But overall, Texas and Panthers game, it's one of those games where you're expecting this for the season, and you're gonna love it because this is gonna stay consistent.
No, yeah, definitely. And like you were saying, like I think the main point you pointed out was the offensive line. It's good.
Yeah.
Shoot, like you look at it, only one sack allowed the whole preseason game. I
Yeah.
think that's like super impressive. Like, Texans fans, you fans, the media, all of Houston's been waiting for a good offensive line.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels like you guys are starting to get it together with the O line. So that's really good. And like Nick Chubb, shoot,
Yeah.
that you thought Joe Mixon was scary. Now I just had Nick Chubb in, and that's a deadly duo. It's gonna be like the Lions offense. Just
Yeah.
double duo, double running back. But you got a better quarterback in CJ Stroud,
Yeah.
arguably debatable. But CJ Stroud just excellent, and that's a really good outing, 20-3, really good for Houston. And that's really good. And the Houston defense, they're just always showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, it's all because of our interior pressure. And I was kind of having a little bit of debate on how good our defensive tackles are going to be from Sheldon Rankins because of his age getting up there. Others like Foley Fatakowski, he started dealing with injury, and it was just consistent of who was going to be the starting defensive tackle. And because of how our defensive tackles did well last season, but they didn't do what we hoped last season. It was kind of where we had to hope for Daniil and Will to bring the most pressure, but it just all worked out well. Our linebackers looked well, and our our secondary is just our secondary. They're elite. Stingley, Kamari, Jalen Smith, Jalen Reed. They're all just young guys ready to be who they are, especially Stingley and Kamari. Them two are going to be the top two cornerback duo of this year. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, damn. No, it's just really good corners, really good secondary. How has it been more though at the safety position, you would say, so far?
Safety position, they've been holding their own. Like Jalen Petrie, he's back and healthy. It's good to see. We honestly use him as like our hybrid with a safety linebacker and using him to blitz. So, and he's honestly even though a lot of people don't see it, he is honestly the leader of the defense. He's been with us for about a couple years now, and just the way he moves, the way he's under D'Amico, setting the formations, getting everything together. If he's got a blitz, he'll blitz. But other than that, it's looking good. We're still waiting for CJ Gardner-Johnson. He'll more likely be back by week 1. But from the first stringers to the third stringers, including the second stringers, it all looks like everybody's collided with each other. They're just aligned with each other. Everybody's chemistry on defense is just 100% because of how they're not going to let up. They're not going to lose a tackle. They're not going to lose where their man is. They're not going to lose where their awareness is at when the offense hikes the ball.
No, yeah, really good. And that's part of like the D'Amico Ryan style defense, right? It's just tackling and, that's just been a crazy impact, just D'Amico coming in, and now you're just seeing it, long term, it's just going to work out really well for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, and I was just gonna put, and just today during joint practice with the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell actually put out saying, "Yeah, the Texans are going to be like the Lions, a juggernaut of the NFL season these next few seasons." And I'm like, it's kind of true with this defense. But going on from this game, with the Colts and Packers game, how did that go?
Oh, it was really good. Again, the Colts-Packers game, I think it really taught the Colts fans, I would say, a lot about the quarterback competition. Definitely when you look at the stats here, Daniel Jones was 7 of 11, coming in with 101 yards. Anthony Richardson coming in with 6 of 11 for 73 yards. And, of course, you kind of look at the stat sheet, right? Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, almost nearly similar stats. And I think what made the quarterback choice, it wasn't easy. I'm almost certain it wasn't easy for the coaches to make that decision. But throughout camp, throughout the preseason, the most consistent one, looking back at the film, when I look back at the film, because, when I was seeing the game, Aaron, it was more though like, okay, Anthony Richardson, I could see him being the starter. And then when I look back at it, back at the film, I'm like, I think it might go to Daniel Jones. And I'm going to say the reason for that is because he's a lot more consistent. You can tell he has experience in the way he is in the huddle, in the pocket. Obviously, Anthony Richardson, there are improvements, right? He's a lot more calm in the pocket, right? Not a lot of flusterness coming out of him, but at times you can kind of see the inconsistencies. You can see him stare down receivers, right? Not go through his progressions correctly, right? And that's something that other quarterbacks tend to do just naturally, right? Go through progressions instead of like just staring down one guy, and then it ends up being an issue there. But definitely going into it, Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback, and definitely it's going to be a heck of a season with him. I think Daniel Jones, it's another opportunity for him to prove that he can be a franchise quarterback in the league.
Yeah, and going off of that, honestly, as a Texas fan from the outside, looking from the outside in and all that, I see, if any Colts fans are watching this, I see from the hate of the decision or the love of the decision, which I'm going to go on the love side, which I'll understand because Daniel Jones, he's coming from a terrible franchise, a terrible culture. He's had to go through that for his whole career. So he's kind of building up that upbringing, that comeback mission of wanting to show that he is talented. He is where he was drafted to be who he was. So, he had to be the leader of the Giants because of how there's nothing but young guys on the Giants offense, the Giants defense, the Giants QB room, any coaching decisions, anything like that. Everybody was young. So Daniel Jones was growing with that franchise that really didn't treat him any better than the way he treated them. So they kind of threw him into the fire of every single thing. So that's why when you saw Giants media, when you saw NFL media, it was always just bashing Daniel Jones when there was always times where he just had no room in the pocket, no time, no talent on his weapons. So, I understand it. So Daniel Jones coming up with the Colts, it's one of those where it's like, if he got the starting job, this is gonna be the comeback player of the year if he does well. But from from the hate side of it, I understand because everybody drafting Anthony Richardson, they were hoping he was the future, but there's just, of course, inconsistencies with Anthony Richardson even now, which, of course, I understand the staring his wide receivers down, staring his weapons down, which, as a Texas fan, we've watched that plenty of times where he's kind of just staring them down, especially when he throws his deep ball. It's like, where it's going. You're just hoping your receiver catches it. So, of course, I'm in the middle of the decisions. It's one of those where I've said it previously. If Dan Jones pans out, that's a win for the Colts decision-making, coach's decision. If he doesn't pan out and Anthony Richardson comes in to do his job, it's still not a loss. It's more of who's going to win that QB battle, who's going to, pretty much win the QB battle going on through the season, but who's going to show off better. But if they don't pan out, both of them don't pan out, then it is a loss for the Colts. But it's one of those where it's like, I just don't see both of them not panning out. I at least see one of them panning out, but it's just one of those where we got to see how it looks week 1 of the NFL season.
Yeah, and here Daniel Jones coming in, right? Just like you stated, Daniel Jones came from a franchise that just didn't treat him properly, right? The Giants, it just didn't have the best offensive line, right? You had Saquon, right, during 2023, during that tenure. Daniel Jones won a playoff game. I think fans tend to forget that. Like, he went into Minnesota, might I say, with Kirk Cousins. When Minnesota Vikings were with Kirk, Justin Jefferson, they had that good defense, right? They're winning the division. They looked good early on that year, I believe. They were really good 2023-wise. They were just looking really good, and then New York just comes in here and gets their revenge on them in the playoffs. They get slapped by the Eagles, but it doesn't matter. The point is, they won a playoff game, right? A win is a win, right? And I think it's just so excellent to kind of just see, okay, Daniel Jones, let's see what he got, right? I think Colts fans, the media, Twitter, just journalists, everyone is kind of flaming Daniel Jones right before he gets even going to week 1, right? We got to see what he does in week 1. If he gets a W, I think that will start it off strong. But right now, I really feel like the pressure's on for Daniel Jones specifically because a lot of fans wanted Anthony Richardson, right? A lot of people wanted Anthony Richardson. I would say most of the fan base, if not most of the media, wanted Anthony Richardson. And now that it's Daniel Jones, there's just a lot more of that pressure, right? Like for Daniel Jones to do good. But I believe that Daniel Jones, he's going to be a good quarterback. I don't think he's going to get you over the top with some of the plays, but I think he does just enough for you to win a game. I honestly think he does. And I think that's more than what the Colts can ask for, right? You look at the past quarterbacks that have been here, it's been a lot of mediocre quarterback play the past few years, ever since Andrew Luck, right? And we're finally getting to look at Daniel Jones, a quarterback that potentially isn't going to be mediocre, right? We're going to see, hopefully, he brings that at least solid quarterback play where no turnovers, just managing, being a game manager, managing the game. We have Jonathan Taylor. We have the offensive line. We have the weapons. We have Tyler Warren now. Now, what is Daniel Jones going to do with all this disposal, all these weapons around him? So it's really intriguing to see what's going to happen next year.
Yeah, and another thing I was going to put out was just like, if Colts can make backups like Gardner Minshew look good enough to win games, get you almost into the playoffs. We kind of ended that. But what do you call it? But aside from that, it's still, if they can make someone as a backup like Gardner Minshew look good, I'm sure they'll Steichen can make a starter like Daniel Jones look even better. Because Daniel Jones isn't a backup; he's a starter. He's started for the Giants for so long already. He's not no backup. I'm sure if he was on another team like the Texans, he would be the backup. But still, he has that starter potential. It's just you got to put him on the right team, the right surrounding room, the right safe offensive line. Aside from the Giants, the Colts have always had a pretty great, good, and decent offensive line. But aside from the Giants, they've always been terrible with their offensive line. Even back to Eli Manning. Eli Manning, I felt always got hit. But aside from that, yeah, I still see, aside from it all, I can see Daniel Jones doing good. I have no really mindful thinking that it'll be a regret that Steichen makes. And if it does turn out the way he wants it to, I'm sure AR will be sitting down on the bench, just watching film, watching tape, practicing more, going after what he needs to do better, then suit up if he has to. If Dan Jones, I'm not going to say it happens, but if anything occurs for him to miss a game or anything like that.
Exactly, Aaron. And Anthony Richardson, he's just going to have to, that's kind of what you were saying earlier, is that he's just going to have to, study more film, sit behind Daniel Jones. And a lot of fans, a lot of media isn't really excited about that. But I think, it's going to be good for Richardson, whether Daniel Jones ends up being the franchise quarterback, happens to be, right? Then Richardson would go to another team, use what he learned on the next team he goes to, or Daniel Jones doesn't pan out. Richardson comes in and takes a starting job, right? Like, again, Shane Steichen says he's keeping Richardson out of this Bengals preseason week 3 game for a reason, right? He doesn't want Richardson to get hurt in case he needs Richardson to start over Jones in case, Jones gets hurt, right? That way Richardson can come in, so a QB competition isn't always a bad thing to have. I think that's what kind of, everybody tends to get mixed up. I always think it could be a great thing. Because if anything, that's just going to help both quarterbacks just kind of stay together, right? Cheer each other on, just a friendly competition between the two. And, Richardson will be on the sidelines, for now, but you never know. He can get a shot during the season if DJ somehow, pray not, doesn't get hurt, right? Richardson has to come in, step up to the potential, right? Next man up, right? So, in terms of quarterbacking, Daniel Jones is a starter. But in terms of the rushing game, wasn't too bad when it comes to the stat sheet. DJ Giddens was like 6 for 28. The rushing game wasn't that bad. So it was 20 for 93 total. So it wasn't like a wow, but it was pretty good overall. I think in terms of the receiving game, right, you had Tyler Warren show some flashes yet again. I mean, coming in at 1 for 25, he had 1 catch for 25. There was one time where Daniel Jones did overthrow him, so it should have been like 2 for like 40 something. But Daniel Jones did have an overthrow. But just fixing those issues, it's all chemistry. And Jelani Woods 2 for 22. You had some, in terms of the tight ends, they did a really good job shifting between all of them, but they all showed flashes. And in terms of the receiving game, you had Michael Pittman 2 for 21, Anthony Gold coming in 3 for 20. So, of course, everyone just kind of had their own flashes and everything else. But I really liked what I saw from the Colts here. Even just, getting that fumble on the Green Bay Packers as well, on Wilson. One of the defensive standouts there, coming in from Smith, I think was the interior D lineman, Tim Smith, that ended up getting the fumble. So shout out to him. That was a really great punch out. Richardson got another chance to start on the drive. So really, really great there. But yeah, overall, I really liked what the Colts and the Packers game ended up being. It was just a really good game. You saw some flashes from everyone else. But some unfortunate news, though. Sam Womack did go down with an injury. That's another one of our corners, depth cornerbacks, outside corners. So the Colts, Chris Ballard, signed Xavien Howard, ex-Miami Dolphin, veteran corner. I do like the decision. I think it's going to help the Colts a lot, especially just getting a guy like Xavien Howard that's, according to what we see, Xavien Howard and Lou Anarumo are familiar with each other. Lou Anarumo was the DB coach over in Miami a couple years back, so it's definitely going to be pretty like a kind of like a reunion for them too, but definitely really nice to have a guy like Xavien Howard to help out. You have Travius Ward, Jalen Jones, who, is now getting active. Juju Brents and Jalen Jones were dealing with the injuries, but getting Xavien Howard alongside Travius Ward, having those two in the backfield, it's a lot of trust, right, that you kind of have in the veteran experience. It's something that I would say the Colts have been lacking, right, like his experience in the secondary. The only one that had experience was Kenny Moore.
Yeah. And honestly, with the signing of Xavien Howard, what that shows is that, the Colts aren't sitting down. They want to go after who they want to go after. They see the holes, and they're going to make a signing like this signing. So it's good to know that they're not going to just sit on their hands and just be like, all right, well, let's just head into the season and see how this plays out with one of our guys injured and the others questionable. So, this signing is a good signing, for so that's really going to help boost the morale of the defense, being like, we're going to, help y'all where we can help y'all, especially when one man goes down.
No, yeah, definitely. And I think, when you get a guy like Xavien Howard, it's going to help improve the secondary. And considering all the injuries that have hit the Colts, it's like another like hamstring injury. Like, what's going on, right? Like a lot of, it's a lot of speculation, like what's going on in the locker room, what's going on in the health department, why are players just going down? But yeah, just overall though, good to see that Xavien Howard coming in. But now preseason week 3 is coming up. The Colts are not going to play their starters. Daniel Jones and Richardson are not playing, so it's just going to be backups. But really looking forward to, at least see the backups play, see some standouts play for the Colts. But on the other side for the Texans, are you guys going to be playing any starters for week 3?
So far they haven't reported nothing, but with us having joint practice camp with the Detroit Lions, which I wish we had a rematch to this regular season game from last year, because how that turned out. We had 5 interceptions on Jared Goff and still lost. So that's a hurtful one. But a preseason game with them, joint practice, is just fun to watch. 2 top 5 teams. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I see both of them as the top 5 teams in the NFL. But 2 great coaches, 2 great defenses. 2 good offenses as well. But their defenses are like the main signature of their team. But I don't know who's going to start yet, but once we find out, we'll find out. But I would definitely love to see both sides of the ball starters play at least one drive or one quarter, just to have some fun for the final third preseason game, because we cutting down the 53-man roster. I know they want to see all the second stringers, third stringers play out, but you got to at least take some more rust off of your starters, have them play one more game until we finally play the Rams on September 7th. So, going with that, it's just seeing by Saturday who we're going to play. I won't be upset if the starters don't play. It's more of, all right, let them just rest until September 7th comes. But one thing I forgot to mention that, was blown up in Texans media was this past week. It's crazy that I've talked about him all these weeks. We traded Joh Metchie to the Philadelphia Eagles, and, it was surprising. I didn't expect that we were going to trade him. I thought we were going to mainly stash him as a backup or cut him in the 53-man roster. But we traded him to Philadelphia. It was a day 3 swap pick, and we also got their tight end Harrison Bryant, who is a pretty good tight end. He's good at blocking. He actually played against us when we played the Cleveland Browns 2 years ago. 2 years ago in the playoff game against Cleveland Houston. He was he was one of the tight ends that Joe Flacco went to majority of the time, and he tore us up. I'm not gonna lie. So having a tight end that showed what he has against us, he was honestly a third string backup for the Eagles, but they have good tight ends already, so that's why he's a third stringer. So getting something out of trading Metchie, it was kind of like, well, we got something, because we had no hope for him. We were hoping that he had a bright future, especially coming off of the leukemia and everything, but once he came back, because we saw how great he did for Alabama with his years in Alabama. He looked so great, but I guess it just didn't pan out with what we wanted him to do. So we sent him to the Eagles. And who's on the Eagles? His former teammates, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith. So I'm sure he's going to get accustomed there. So, I want to see him have a bright future. I'm glad he's not in the AFC to face us to prove something. But other than that, it was a trade, but we just move on. And the thing I'm happy about is we have Nico, we have Christian Kirk, and we have who we promoted as starter as our third wide receiver, which is Xavier Hutchinson, who honestly is sort of a 1.5 version of Nico. He's like half of, in a way, half of Nico. He's got talent, but he makes plays. He's shown up a lot this offseason. Everybody's been in love with how he's done, but everybody thought it was going to be our rookie wide receiver that we drafted this year, Jaden Higgins, who honestly is a identical twin of Nico. They're sized and the way they look both on Saturday against the Panthers. But other than that, I'm excited to see how these weapons look out. As I said before, I hope Joh Metchie pans out for the Eagles. I don't want to see his story cut short with how much he's come back from. So other than that, it's been, a quiet week after that. Just simple training camp, simple joint practice, and just, basic trades made, to better each other's teams.
No, yeah, definitely. And that's kind of like what you were saying, Joh Metchie getting that
Mm.
reunion with the
Yeah.
Philadelphia Eagles. The players over there, used to be with him back in college, and I think that's just an excellent opportunity for him to just get
Mm.
back with old teammates. Just really good there. But yeah, I mean, overall, just getting into preseason week 3, it feels like everything's kind of calming down. Everyone
Yeah.
kind of wants to go to week 1 now. They're like, oh, okay, we kind of had enough of this. We're going to week 1. But
Yeah.
um, if anything, one thing that I'm looking for in this next preseason game, the Bengals aren't going to start their starters either. So
Okay.
I'm just kind of looking for the interior depth, the
Yeah.
running defense. When it comes to the first, second level, right, stopping the run, I'm hoping to see that be better this time around, especially against, the Bengals. I know they have, some offensive depth there, especially at running back and the receivers that are looking pretty good. So we'll start to see those battles come into play on the defensive side. On the offensive side, we'll start to see, Riley Leonard, start to
Mm.
show up here. Jason Bean, get a look at those two guys. But overall, we're going to get to look at DJ Giddens. Didn't even
Mm.
mention DJ Giddens. We'll definitely get to take a look at him, get to look at the backup offensive line. But overall, just a lot more calming down. Preseason week 3, getting closer and closer towards
Oh
the
yeah.
debut, towards week 1, man. That's what everyone's excited for.
No, yeah. Once, like, I know preseason week 3 is one of those, especially if the starters don't play. It's one of those where it's like, do you want to watch it or do you not want to watch it? We're gonna get bored by the third quarter or second quarter, but regardless, everybody's ready for week 1. We're ready to see how this season pans out, because I know it's an exciting one for Houston. It's an exciting one for the Colts, especially when it comes to the QB room. I mean, to me, what I say is, at least the Colts don't have a QB room like Cleveland, but other than that, it's good on both sides with how much we're expecting from both of our teams.
Yeah, no, definitely. And any last thoughts, Aaron, from you, man? Like any last thoughts for the Texans week 3?
Honestly, I'm just hoping by once this preseason week 3 game is over, I'm hoping by next Thursday, we can come back here. We can talk about if they finally do, if they do the day before or the day of the 53-man roster cutting down, because I would love to bring that into the next episode, because I know the other
Yeah.
episode will be about week 1. But other than that, it's just us prepping, us working hard on waiting to see what our teams do, seeing if some random extraordinary move happens. But other than that, pretty much all I got for today.
No, yeah, and that, I mean, really good, of course, because the 53-man roster is coming up, and
Mm.
that does remind me. Next week's episode will be, if the 53-man roster, we'll definitely break down that, but also
Yeah.
we'll look over the entire season, give our record predictions, give ceiling, floor, the whole 9 yards. So you definitely want to be there for that. But it looks like we've come to the conclusion of the episode. That is me, DJ Abcool. That is my boy Aaron, Houston Texans. And you have been just arriving.